Hey guys, tonight we are going to travel back in time to a place of icy fjords, roaring fires, and legendary warriors. We're going to become a Viking. But before you start picturing yourself with a horned helmet, which, by the way, they didn't actually wear in battle in the magnificent, tangled beard full of last week's dinner, let's just get one thing straight. The version of Vikings you see in movies is mostly a fantasy. And honestly, based on that pop culture image, you'd probably be judged as hopelessly uncivilized and maybe a little bit gross. The real story is far more surprising. And frankly, a lot more painful. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support truly means the world. And while you're at it, let me know in the comments what city you're listening from and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background tone. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Close your eyes. The first thing you notice isn't the sting of sea spray or the clang of swords. It's the smell. A dense, smoky aroma of burning peat pie, mixed with the hearty scent of a simmering stew and the faint, clean smell of lye soap. You're standing just inside the doorway of a longhouse. Sunlight filters through the gaps in the timber walls, illuminating swirling dust motes in the hazy air. It's morning, and the hall is stirring with a quiet, domestic rhythm that feels utterly at odds with the brutal chaos you were expecting. You see a woman with hair the color of straw, intricately braided, sitting on a stool. She isn't mending a sail or sharpening a blade. She's carefully plucking her eyebrows with a small pair of bronze tweezers. A few feet away, a broad-shouldered man with a formidable beard is not boasting of his latest trade, but meticulously, almost tenderly, combing his facial hair with a delicate comb carved from antler. He pauses, squints, and then uses another tiny metal tool to adjust a single, unruly strand. Everywhere you look, you see these small, deliberate acts of grooming. This is your first, and perhaps most important, lesson as a Viking. You are not dirty. In fact, by the standards of the age, you are practically obsessed with being clean. This image of the unkempt barbarian is largely a smear campaign, written by the very people whose shores you tend to visit unannounced. An English abbot named John of Wallingford famously complained that the Danish Vikings were far too popular with the local ladies precisely because of their grooming habits. He griped that they combed their hair daily, bathed every Saturday, and changed their woolen clothes frequently. To the less fastidious Anglo-Saxons, this level of hygiene was seen as a kind of seductive, foreign vanity. You start to notice the tools. They're everywhere. Almost every person, man or woman, warrior or slumber, has a set of personal grooming implements, often dangling from a chain on their belt or kept in a small leather pouch. You say tweezer, razors, and a curious little object that looks like a tiny, long-handled scoop. This is an ear spoon, a small, specialized tool designed for, well, exactly what it sounds like. The sheer number of these artifacts found in Viking graves suggest that keeping your ears clean was just a standard part of the daily routine. It's a strangely intimate detail, a reminder that these legendary figures were people who worried about earwax. But why this obsession? This is a question that historians still actively debate. Was it simply about hygiene and preventing lice, a very real problem in the era? Or was it about status, a way to visually distinguish yourself from the common thrall or the foreign enemies you fought? Some scholars suggest it might have been connected to a deeper sense of ritual purity, a belief that a clean body was a reflection of an ordered and prepared mind. ready for fate, whether that meant a good harvest or a glorious death in battle. The true reason was likely a mix of all three, a complex cocktail of practicality, vanity, and belief. As your eyes adjust to the dim light, you realize one object is more common than any other. It's the kohl. You see them tucked into belts, worn on strings around the neck, and lying on nearly every surface. They are made of wood, bone, or, for the more ashwood, polished antler, sometimes decorated with intricate carvings and runes. They are not an afterthought. They are a centerpiece of Viking identity. Every single person seems to possess one, and they use it constantly. It's more than a tool to untangle knots. It's a statement. And as you watch the bearded warrior finish his grooming, placing his comb back into its custom-made case with a sense of finality, you get the feeling that in this world, your hair is one of the most important stories you will ever tell. That comb in the warrior's hand seems to be a signal. It's time for you to start your own day. You give a slight nod to the woman with the tweezers, who barely acknowledges you. Her focus is broken. You push aside the heavy hide flap that serves as a door and step outside. The air hits you with a jolt. It's cold, crisp, and carries the clean, sharp scent of salt from the nearby fjord. The sun is still low, casting long, soft shadows from the longhouse and the surrounding pines. The world feels new and dry. Across the small, trodden patch of earth that serves as a village square, you can see the deep, dark blue of the water, its surface rippled by a steady wind. It's breathtakingly beautiful, but in a way that feels wild and untamed. A beauty that doesn't care if you're comfortable or not. Your first task is not to check your weapons or plan a voyage. It's to wash. Near the entrance of the longhouse sits a large wooden bucket and a smaller, carved wooden basin. Someone has already filled the bucket from the well or a nearby stream. And the water is shockingly, breathtakingly cold. There's no warm water on tap here. If you're really lucky, someone might have heated a stone in the central fire and dropped it into the basin to take the harshest edge off the chill. But today is not one of those days. You cup your hands, dip them into the bucket, and splash the icy water onto your face. It's a violent awakening. It washes away the sleep and the lingering smokiness from the longhouse, leaving your skin tingling and tight. You grab a small, lumpy bar of soap sitting on the edge of the basin. It doesn't look like anything you'd recognize. It's grayish brown, feels slightly gritty, and has a strong, caustic smell. This is the famous white soap, a concoction of animal fat, usually from a pig or a sheep and dash. It's an incredibly effective cleanser, capable of cutting through the grime and grease of daily life. But it is harsh. It's what you use for everything. Washing your hands, your body, and your woolen clothes. This simple, powerful soap is one of the secrets to the Vikings' surprising cleanliness. In fact, this dedication to washing was so central to their routine that it's baked right into their language. The Old Norse word for Saturday is laugardagur, which literally translates to washing day. This was the day for the weekly bath, an appointment so important that it named a day of the week. So, what did this washing day actually look like? That's something historians and archaeologists are still piecing together. The sagas are full of references to bathing, often as a social activity or a way to refresh before a feast or after a long journey. But the physical evidence is a bit more ambiguous. In some high-status settlements, they found the remains of what looked like dedicated bathhouses, small structures where water could be thrown onto hot stones to create a thick, cleansing steam, not unlike a modern sauna. But these seem to be the exception, not the rule. For most people, Was the weekly bath a full-body plunge into the nearest river or lake, even in the bitter cold? Or was it a more practical affair, involving a large wooden tub inside the longhouse, filled with heated water? The answer likely varies by location, and season. It was probably a mix of everything, from a bracing dip in a fjord to a more comfortable, steamy soak if you had the means. For now, your morning routine is much simpler. It's a quick, functional wash of the face and hands in the cold air. You dry yourself with a piece of rough, undyed linen that feels like sandpaper against your skin. And now, for the main event. You reach into a small leather pouch on your belt and retrieve your own comb. It's carved from the antler of a stag you helped hunt last fall. It's smooth and cool to the touch, the tines perfectly spaced. It feels substantial in your hand, an object of both utility and pride. You begin to work it through your hair, starting from the ends and moving slowly upward. Just as you've been taught, this is not a quick, 5-second brush. It's a deliberate, methodical process. Every tangle is a small enemy to be patiently defeated. Your hair is long and thick, a vital part of your identity. It signifies your health, your age, and your status as a free person. Slaves, or thralls, often had their hair cropped short as a mark of their bondage. A full, well-kept head of hair is a declaration of freedom. As you comb, you can feel the cool air on your scalp. You are ordering the chaos, preparing yourself to face the day. This simple ritual is a moment of quiet meditation. But as you finish, catching your reflection in the still water of the basin, you know that this is just the baseline. Being clean and having tidy hair is the bare minimum, the starting point. It's what's expected to truly fit in, to achieve the look that is genuinely admired and even feared. You need to go further. The real work. The work that involves pain and patience and some rather questionable chemistry is about to begin. Your hair may be clean and not free, but it's not the right color. Not yet. With your hair now combed and your face still tingling from the cold water, you turn your attention to the most important tool you own, the one you were just using, your comb. It's more than just a piece of carved antler. It's a passport, a business card, and a work of art, all rolled into one. You hold it up in the pale morning light, admiring the craftsmanship. It's a composite comb, made from several pieces of antler riveted together with small pins of iron or bronze. The central plate is decorated with a series of tiny, precise circles, a common motif known as ring and dot. It's simple, elegant, and instantly recognizable as belonging to your culture. These combs are everywhere in the archaeological record. They are one of the most common items found in Viking graves, for both men and women, rich and poor. Their ubiquity tells us something crucial about how Vikings saw themselves. They cared deeply about their hair. A well-groomed head was not a luxury. It was a necessity. In a world without mirrors in every room, your hair was one of the few aspects of your appearance you could control with precision every single day. The sagas, those epic tales of heroes and feuds, are filled with descriptions of hair. A hero is often introduced with a note about his handsome, well-combed locks. King Harald Fairhair, the legendary first king of Norway, supposedly got his nickname from his magnificent mane, which he vowed not to cut or comb until he had united the entire country. Hair was so important. It was part of a king's political branding. You run your thumb over the smooth, worn surface of your comb. It probably has its own case, another small status symbol. These cases, also often made of bone or antler, were designed to protect the delicate tines of the comb. A man might have his comb encased angling from the same chain as his knife and fire starter, essential tools for survival. A woman might have hers hanging from the ornate brooches that fastened her dress. Having your comb visible was a way of saying, I am a person of standing. I am clean. I am ordered. It was the Viking equivalent of wearing a nice watch. This obsession with hair care wasn't just about looking good. It had a very practical side. Lice were a constant, irritating threat in the pre-modern world. Regular, thorough combing with a fine-toothed comb was the single most effective way to manage and remove them. In fact, some archaeologists have found what they believe to be fossilized lichen that's still clinging to the tines of ancient Viking combs. It's a slightly gross but fascinating detail that grounds these objects in a very real, very human struggle. So, while a beautiful comb was a status symbol, it was also a vital piece of personal hygiene technology. This dual function, practicality and prestige, is a hallmark of Viking design. But the comb isn't the only tool in your grooming kit. As you saw in the longhouse, tweezers were also incredibly common. These small, springy implements, usually made of bronze, were used for all sorts of things. Plucking stray beard hairs to maintain a sharp jawline, shaping eyebrows into a fashionable arch, or removing a stubborn splinter after a day of chopping wood. They were the multi-tool of personal grooming. The presence of so many tweezers reinforces the idea that the ideal Viking look was not effortlessly rugged. It was meticulously curated. That chiseled, heroic jawline you see in illustrations, it was probably maintained with a lot of painful plucking. Then there's the oddest tool of all, the ear spoon. You saw one earlier, a tiny scoop on a long handle. It seems almost comically specific, a solution to a problem most of us solve with a cotton swab. Why dedicate a special, often beautifully decorated, metal tool to cleaning your ears? Historians are still debating the finer points of this. Some argue it was purely practical. In a world without modern medicine, an ear infection caused by impacted wax could be a serious, even fatal, problem. Others suggest a more social or cosmetic reason. Perhaps having visibly clean ears was simply another marker of a well-groomed individual. In close quarters living inside a longhouse, maybe people just noticed that sort of thing more. It's one of those wonderfully specific cultural details that makes the past feel so tangible. Imagine a fierce warrior, just back from a raid, sitting by the fire and casually cleaning his ears with a tiny, decorated spoon. It shatters the stereotype. As you stand there, comb in hand, you look across at the other members of your community starting their day. You see the same rituals being repeated. A young boy carefully parts his hair. A woman braids her daughter's long locks, her fingers moving with practiced speed. The air is filled with this quiet, shared understanding. You are a community defined not just by your ships and your axes, but by your combs and your tweezers. You are a people who believe that order on the outside reflects strength on the inside. But as you look at your own reflection in the water again, you are reminded of the next step. Your hair is a dull, mousy brown. It's clean, it's neat, but it's not right. In this world, there is an ideal, a color that represents youth, beauty, and a certain kind of northern purity. It's the color of the sun on a midsummer morning, the color of fresh straw, the color of gold. It's blonde, and if you weren't born with it, you are expected to do whatever it takes to get it. The comb has done its job. Now it's time for the chemicals. Now that your hair is clean and ungold, you take a moment for the finer details. This is where the tweezers and that curious ear spoon come into play. It's part of the same grooming ritual, a testament to an almost obsessive focus on personal cleanliness that utterly contradicts the dirty barbarian myth. You find a relatively flat rock to sit on, overlooking the fjord. The morning sun just beginning to warm your face. The salty air feels clean, and you want to feel the same. You pull out the small pair of bronze tweezers from your pouch. They are a simple, functional design. 2 strips of metal joined at one end, flexible enough to pinch together at the tips. They feel cool and precise in your fingers. The ideal Viking face, for both men and women, was not one left to nature. It was sculpted. Eyebrows were considered an important feature, and they were expected to be well defined. You might spend a few minutes plucking any stray hairs to create a clean, arched line. For a man, the tweezers were essential for maintaining the edges of a beard or mustache, keeping it from looking untidy. This wasn't about vanity in the modern sense. It was about presenting an image of control and self-respect. In a society where your reputation was everything, looking like you took care of yourself was a non-negotiable part of the package. And then there's the ear spoon. You take it out and examine it. It's a delicate little thing, perhaps with a twisted wire handle or a small animal head carved at the end. It seems almost frivolous. Yet so many have been found in Viking Age graves that they were clearly a standard piece of kit. The existence of this tool speaks volumes. It suggests a culture where people were close enough to each other to notice details like clean ear. Living in the close, communal space of a longhouse meant you worked constantly in each other's personal space. Perhaps a guest who didn't keep their ears clean was seen as slovenly or disrespectful. The debate among historians about the ear spoon is a perfect example of how we try to interpret the past from the objects left behind. Was it purely for hygiene, a preventative measure against infections, or was it cosmetic, like clean fingernails today? A more intriguing, though less proven, theory suggests it might have had a ritualistic purpose. Some cultures have believed that the ears were a gateway for spirits, and keeping them clean was a way of protecting oneself. While there's no direct evidence for this in the Viking context, it's a reminder that everyday objects can have meanings we've lost. For now, you just use it for its intended purpose, a quick and simple act of personal maintenance. This obsession with cleanliness, this toolkit of combs, tweezers, and ear spoons, paints a picture of a society that was highly conscious of appearances. They were not just warriors. They were dandies. They were peacocking. The sagas are full of characters who are admired for their looks. In the Laxd-la saga, the hero Kjartan is described as the most handsome man ever born, with fine features and beautiful hair. When he travels abroad, his good looks and stylish clothes make a huge impression. Conversely, characters who are slovenly or poorly dressed are often depicted as foolish or of low status. This focus on grooming created a stark contrast with many of their neighbors. We already know the English monk John of Wallingford complained about their daily combing and weekly bathing. But it wasn't just the English. Arab travelers who encountered Vikings, whom they called the Rus, also commented on their appearance. One of the most famous accounts is from a diplomat named Ibn Fadl An, who met a group of them on the Volga River. He was, to put it mildly, disgusted by them, calling them the filthiest of God's creatures. He described them sharing a single bowl of water to wash their faces and blow their noses in each morning, a ritual that horrified his sensibilities. So, who is right? The English abbot, who saw them as dangerously clean dandies, or the Arab diplomat, who saw them as disgustingly dirty? This is one of those fantastic contradictions that historians love to argue about. The truth is, both were probably right, from their own cultural perspectives. For Ibn Fadl An, coming from the sophisticated and highly ritualized hygiene culture of the Islamic world, the Vikings' communal washing bowl was barbaric. But for the Anglo-Saxons, who likely bathed far less frequently. The Vikings' regular habit of washing and changing clothes seemed incredibly vain and exotic. Cleanliness is relative. What one culture sees as pristine, another might see as filthy. The archaeological evidence, with its mountains of combs and grooming tools, strongly supports the idea that, by European standards of the time, the Vikings were exceptionally clean. They just had their own way of doing it. As you put your tweezers on deer spoon away, you feel prepared, ordered. You have attended to the small details that signal you are a person of worth. But this is all just surface preparation. The real challenge, the one that truly separates the fashionable from the plain, still lies ahead. You look at your non-blonde hair. It's a canvas waiting to be painted. And the paint you're about to use is caustic, smelly, and will burn if you're not careful. The pursuit of the golden ideal requires a certain tolerance for pain. With the small details of your grooming complete, your attention now turns to the most significant aesthetic project of all, your hair color. You look around the settlement, and it's impossible to miss. It's everywhere. A flash of gold as a woman turns her head, the sun catching the pale strands of her braids. A man's beard, glowing almost white against the dark wool of his tunic. Blonde hair is not just a common sight here. It is the ideal. It's the color of heroes, of legends, and of the gods themselves. Thor, the mighty god of thunder, was famous for his fiery red hair and beard. But many other deities, like the beautiful Sif, his wife, were celebrated for their golden locks. This preference for blonde hair is deeply woven into the fabric of Viking culture and even its mythology. In one story, the god Heimdallr travels through the world of mortals and fathers, the three classes of humanity. The son he has with the aristocrats is named Jarl, and he is described as having bright, shining hair. The son he has with the free farmers, Karl, has a healthy, ruddy complexion, and the son he has with the slaves, Cyril, is described as having dark, coarse hair. The message is not subtle. Blonde hair is associated with the nobility, with power and status. It is a visual shorthand for being at the top of the social ladder. Why this obsession with blonde hair? This is another one of those questions where historians have theories, but no definitive answers. One of the most straightforward explanations is simple rarity. In Scandinavia, while blonde hair is more common than in southern Europe, it's still not universal. Many people have brown, red, or black hair, as is often the case in human societies. Rarity creates value. What is less common becomes more desirable. The fair-haired ideal might simply be an aesthetic preference for something that stood out. Another theory connects it to ideas about ethnicity and identity. As the Vikings began to raid and trade far beyond their homelands, their physical appearance became a key part of how they were identified by others, and how they identified themselves. The Northman looked tall, fair-skinned, and light-haired became a kind of brand, actively cultivating this look, especially the blonde hair, could have been a way of reinforcing their distinct cultural identity, a way of saying we are not like the darker-haired people of the South. It was a way to visually unify a diverse group of people from different parts of Scandinavia under a single, powerful image. There may also be a more primal, biological reason. Across many cultures, lighter hair is associated with youth. As many children are born with blonde hair that darkens with age, a preference for blonde hair could be linked to a subconscious attraction to the traits of youthfulness and fertility. In a harsh world with high mortality rates, signs of health and vitality were incredibly attractive, and light, bright hair could have been one of the most visible of those signs. Whatever the reason, the cultural pressure is immense. You can feel it in the admiring glances given to those with naturally pale hair and the way the sagas linger on descriptions of golden locks. For you, with your ordinary brown hair, this isn't just a matter of personal taste. Conforming to this standard is a way to improve your social standing, to look more like the heroes you hear about in the stories told around the fire at night. It's a way to fit in, and to stand out, all at the same time. So, the decision is made. You are going to bleach your hair. This is not a choice to be taken lightly. It's a commitment. The process is smelly, uncomfortable, and not without its risks. But the social rewards are considered to be worth it. It's a transformation that will change how people see you, and perhaps how you see yourself. You head back toward the longhouse. Your purpose clear. You need to acquire the key ingredient for this transformation. It's not some rare, exotic substance imported from distant lands. It's something far more mundane. Something you have in abundance right here in the settlement. It's the same stuff you used to wash your face this morning, but in a much more concentrated, much more potent form. You're going for that lye heavy soap. A block of solid chemical potential that can strip the color from your hair and, if you're not careful, the skin from your scalp. You find the woman who specializes in making it. An older woman with hands toughened by years of working with ash and fat. You trade her a small piece of silver you've been saving. She hands you a dense, greasy bar of the stuff. It feels heavy in your hand. A weapon in the war against your own natural hair color. The faint, sharp smell of lye already stings your nostrils. The tyranny of blonde hair is about to become very, very real. You're holding the key to your transformation. A dense, greasy bar of high lye soap. It doesn't look like much, but it's a powerful chemical agent. This isn't the relatively mild soap you used for your morning wash. This is the industrial strength stuff, specifically formulated for one purpose: bleaching. To understand what you're about to do to your hair, you first need to understand what this stuff actually is. The recipe for Viking soap was simple, yet effective. It was made from two basic ingredients: a fat and an alkali. The fat was usually tallow, rendered from sheep or cattle, though pig fat could also be used. This was the easy part. The crucial, and more complex, ingredient was the alkali. This was lye, a highly caustic substance that the Vikings produced from wood ash. The process was ingenious. They would take hardwood ashes, preferably from beech or oak trees, and place them in a cloth-lined barrel or a hollowed-out log that had a small hole at the bottom. Then, they would slowly pour water over the ashes. The water would trickle through it, dissolving the potassium hydroxide and potassium carbonate from the ash, and drip out of the bottom as a brownish, slippery liquid. This was lye. The strength of the lye could be tested in a few ways. A common method was to float a potato or an egg in it. If the object floated with a certain amount of its surface showing, the lye was considered the right strength. If it sank, the lye was too weak. If it floated too high, it was too strong. It was a simple, but surprisingly accurate, form of chemistry. The woman who gave you your soap bar is a master of this process. She knows just how much water to use, just how long to let it sit, to create a lye solution that is potent enough to bleach hair without, hopefully, causing too much damage. To make the soap, this lye solution was then mixed with the melted animal fat and boiled for hours over a low fire. The mixture had to be stirred constantly. As it cooked, a chemical reaction called saponification occurred. The lye broke down the fats, transforming them into a thick, loopy substance. This was then poured into molds or simply allowed to cool in the pot, hardening into the solid bars you're now holding. The secret to this soap's bleaching power was its high concentration of lye. For normal cleaning soap, the goal was to have just enough lye to react with all the fat, creating a balanced, relatively mild soap. But for bleaching soap, the soap maker would use an excess of lye. This meant that the final bar contained not just soap molecules, but also a significant amount of unreacted, highly alkaline lye. It was this free lye that would do the work on your hair. It's an incredibly strong alkaline agent that would forcefully open up the cuticle of your hair shaft and break down the natural melanin pigments inside, stripping them of their color. It's a brute force approach to hair lightening. This potent soap was a valuable trade good. Archaeological evidence shows that the Vikings were exporting this stuff. The Roman historian Pliny the Elder, writing centuries before the Viking Age, mentioned that the peoples of the north used a special soap made of goat fat and ashes to dye their hair red. Where the timing is off. It shows that this concept of using harsh soaps to alter hair color was a long-standing tradition in Northern Europe. By the Viking Age, they had perfected it. It was one of the things they were known for. In fact, some historians believe that the English word sapon, which eventually became soap, may have been borrowed from the Germanic languages of these northern peoples. So you're not just holding a beauty product. You're holding a piece of sophisticated, practical chemistry, a product of generations of trial and error. It represents a deep understanding of the natural resources of the forest, the right kind of wood for the ash, the right kind of fat from the animals. It's a testament to a culture that was incredibly resourceful. But knowledge of its origins doesn't make the prospect of using it any less daunting. You know people who have done this before. You've seen the results. The brilliant, almost white blonde hair that seems to catch all the light. But you've also heard the stories. The tingling sensation that quickly turns into a burning it. The chemical burns on the scalp if the soap is left on for too long. The dry, brittle texture of the hair for weeks afterward. This isn't a gentle, salon-quality highlighting kit. It is a controlled chemical assault. You take a deep breath. The caustic scent of the soap filling your senses. You find a secluded spot by the edge of the woods. A small clearing where you won't be disturbed. You'll need a bucket of water, a cloth, and a good deal of courage. You break off a small piece of the lye heavy soap and mash it in your hands with a little water, working it into a thick, gritty paste. The mixture starts to feel warm in your palms. A small hint of the chemical reaction to come. You look at your dark, healthy hair one last time before you begin. It's time to feel the burn. The lye paste in your hands feels slick and gritty, a strange combination of smooth animal fat and coarse wood ash. It's slightly warm to the touch, and the sharp, chemical smell is unmistakable. This is the moment of commitment. Taking a deep breath, you begin to work the concoction into your hair. Your fingers, already accustomed to the harshness of the regular soap, are less sensitive to the initial sting. You start at the roots, massaging the paste directly onto your scalp with your fingertips. It feels like rubbing wets and into your skin. You work your way down the length of your hair, methodically coating every strand until your head is covered in a thick, gray, foul-smelling helmet of soap. At first, there's nothing, just the cold, clammy feeling of the paste. But then, a few moments later, it begins. A faint tingling sensation, like the feeling of a foot that's fallen asleep. It's a subtle prickling that spreads slowly across your entire scalp. This is the sign you've been waiting for. It means the lye is active, beginning its work of breaking and entering the fortress of your hair shafts. You know you have to endure this feeling. In fact, you welcome it. The tingling gradually intensifies, blossoming into a persistent, undeniable itch. It's not an ordinary itch that a quick scratch can satisfy. It's a deep, chemical itch that seems to emanate from beneath the skin. You fight the urge to rake your nails across your scalp, knowing that would only break the skin and invite a much more painful chemical burn. You clench your fists, focusing on your breathing, trying to mentally separate yourself from the growing discomfort. This is the first test of your endurance. Now that your hair is fully coated, you enact the second part of the process, a step that historians believe was crucial for achieving the best results. You move from the shade of the trees into the direct sunlight. The theory, which many scholars support, is that the heat and ultraviolet rays from the sun would accelerate the chemical reaction, making the bleaching process more effective. So you find a spot, sit down, and tilt your head back, offering your soap-caked hair to the sky. The sun feels warm on your face, a pleasant contrast to the increasingly unpleasant sensation on your scalp. The tingling and itching are now morphing into a distinct feeling of heat. It's a slow building, prickling heat, as if 1,000 tiny, warm needles are pressing into your skin. You close your eyes and listen to the sounds of the settlement around you, the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the bleating of sheep, the murmur of voices. All of it seems to fade into a dull background hum, your entire world shrinking to the circumference of your own skull. The heat intensifies. It's no longer just warm. It's hot, halo-grade, persistent burn. This is the price of admission to the fellowship of the fair-haired. You remind yourself of the warriors who do this, who deliberately cultivate this battle blonde, look to appear more terrifying to their enemies. If they can endure, so can you. How long do you leave it on? This is the art and the terror of the process. There's no timer, no instruction manual. It's all done by feeling and experience. Leave it on too short a time, and your hair will turn a blotchy, unattractive or inch. Leave it on for a minute too long, and you risk not just damaged hair, but painful sores and scabs on your scalp. You have to listen to your body, to the rising crescendo of the burn, and decide when you've reached the perfect point between effectiveness and injury. Finally, you can't take it anymore. The heat has become a constant, throbbing presence. It's dark. You scramble to the bucket of cold water you prepared earlier and dunk your entire head into it. The relief is instantaneous and absolute. A wave of glorious, shocking cold quenches the chemical fire. You use your hands to scrub the paste out of your hair, the water immediately turning a murky, yellowish-brown as the soap and your natural hair color are washed away. You rinse and rinse again, until the water runs clear and the burning sensation has been replaced by a dull, tender ache. Your hair feels terrible. It's stiff, coarse, and tangled, like a bundle of dry straw. The lye has stripped it not only of its color, but also of all its natural oils. You might try to remedy this later with some kind of animal fat or fish oil, working it through your hair to restore some moisture, though that comes with its own set of unpleasant smells. For now, you just gently squeeze the water out and let it air dry. You catch a glimpse of your reflection in the surface of the water bucket. It's a distorted, rippling image, but you can see it clearly enough. Your hair is no longer brown. It's a pale, buttery, Viking blonde. The pain has paid off. You've done your head. But as you look at your reflection, you realize the job is only half done. Your eyebrows and, if you're a man, your beard, are still their original dark color. The contrast is ridiculous. The chemical ordeal is not over yet. Your scalp is still tender, a dull, throbbing reminder of the chemical assault it just endured. But as you run your fingers through your newly blonde, straw-like hair, you know the process isn't complete. You catch your reflection again in the water, and the discrepancy is jarring. This magnificent, hard, one golden mane sits above your original, darker eyebrows, If you were a man, the contrast would be even more pronounced, with a dark, bushy beard creating a comical two-toned effect. This will not do. The Viking aesthetic is about commitment. It's a complete look, not a halfway measure. So, with a sigh of resignation, you prepare for round 2. Bleaching your eyebrows and beard is a different kind of challenge. The skin on your face, particularly around your eyes, is far more sensitive than your scalp. The hair is coarser and more resistant to bleaching. This requires precision, a steady hand, and a renewed tolerance for discomfort. You can't just slap the lye paste on. A mistake here could mean getting the caustic mixture in your eyes, which would be disastrous. You take a small amount of the remaining bleaching soap and mix it into a very thick paste. This time, you might use a small, flattened stick or a piece of bone as an applicator, something that gives you more control than your fingertips. For your eyebrows, you lean in close to the surface of the water, using your distorted reflection as a guide. You carefully, deliberately, paint the thick paste onto the small strips of hair, being extra cautious not to let it drip or smudge. The skin immediately begins to prickle and burn, a sharper, more intense sensation than what you felt on your scalp. You have to work quickly. The time frame here is much shorter. You'll leave the paste on for only a few minutes, just long enough to lift the color without causing serious chemical burns on your face. For a man, the beard is the next frontier. It's a source of immense pride, a symbol of masculinity and maturity. A well-groomed beard is a sign of a respectable man, and a bleached beard is the mark of a fashionable warrior. The process is the same, but on a larger scale. You would carefully apply the lye paste to your mustache and beard, coating the coarse hairs right down to the skin. The burning sensation on your chin and cheeks would be immediate and intense. Use it, stiff and unmoving, trying not to talk or even move your mouth too much, lest you disturb the paste. The acrid smell of the lye is right under your nose, an unavoidable companion to the pain. This practice of bleaching beards is something that caught the attention of foreign observers. The Vikings who settled in Ireland and mixed with the local population were sometimes referred to in the Irish annals as the Fine Gael El, or white foreigners, while Vikings of Danish origin were called the Dub Gael El, or dark foreigners. Historians still debate the exact meaning of this distinction. Does white and dark refer to their hair color, their ships, or their disposition? One popular theory is that it directly refers to their hair, with the white foreigners, likely Norwegians, being more dedicated to the practice of bleaching their hair and beards to a pale blonde, while the dark foreigners perhaps tended to keep their natural, darker hair. It's a fascinating glimpse into how these subtle aesthetic choices became powerful group identifiers. After a few agonizing minutes, it's time to rinse. You splash your face repeatedly with the cold water, carefully wiping away the paste from your eyebrows and beard. The skin beneath is red and angry, but the hair is noticeably lighter. It might take a few applications over several days to achieve the perfect shade of platinum blonde. Each session a fresh renewal of the burning unditching. It's a cycle of pain and patience. Once the entire transformation is complete, hair, eyebrows, and beard all bleached to a uniform, sun-bright blonde, the effect is striking. It's an artificial, almost unnatural look that is intentionally dramatic. It makes your eyes seem darker and more intense. On a warrior, it creates a look that is both impressive and intimidating. Imagine facing a shield wall of men, all with these brilliant blonde manes and beards, their eyes rimmed with dark paint. It would be a genuinely unnerving sight, which was, of course, part of the point. But this isn't a one-time affair. Your hair, of course, continues to grow. Within a few weeks, your dark roots will begin to show. This means the entire painful, smelly process has to be repeated again and again for as long as you want to maintain the look. It's a constant, high-maintenance commitment. The pursuit of the Viking ideal is not for the lazy. It demands regular offerings of time and a high tolerance for chemical burns. As you feel the raw, tender skin on your face and scalp, you have to ask yourself if it's worth it, looking around at the admiring glances you're already starting to receive. The answer, for now, is yes. You successfully aligned your appearance with the cultural ideal. You look the part, but you are acutely aware of the physical cost. For a few glorious weeks, you enjoy the fruits of your labor. Your hair, though still feeling a bit like dried ender, is a brilliant, uniform blonde. You've gotten used to the admiring looks. You feel like you've leveled up in the social hierarchy of the village. But beauty, especially this kind of brew, chemically induced beauty, is fleeting. The initial triumph of your transformation soon begins to fade as the inevitable side effects kick in. The first and most obvious problem is the damage to your hair itself. The powerful lye soap didn't just strip out the color. It stripped out everything. Your hair, once reasonably soft and flexible, is now brittle and prone to breakage. When you comb it, which you still do, meticulously, you will notice more and more sharp, broken strands getting caught in the tines. The ends are splitting, creating a frizzy, frayed halo effect that undermines the sharp, clean look you were trying to achieve. You try to counteract this by working in various oils and fats. Goose fat is a popular choice, or even fish oil if you can stand the smell. These treatments help a little, restoring a bit of moisture and shine, but they also make your hair greasy and heavy, requiring more frequent washing with the harsh soap, which only perpetuates the cycle of damage. It's a constant battle to keep your chemically lightened hair from looking like a poorly made thatch roof. Then there are the scalp issues. The initial burning sensation might have faded, but your skin is still paying the price. Your scalp is dry, flaky, and persistently itchy. You have what is essentially a severe case of chemical dandruff, and those little white flakes stand out starkly against the dark wool of your tunic. It's not the clean, impressive look you were hoping for. For some people, the consequences are worse. If the lye paste was too strong or left on for too long, the result can be painful chemical burns that scab over and take weeks to heal. These can sometimes become infected, a serious concern in a world without antibiotics. In the worst case scenarios, the damage to the hair follicles is permanent, leading to patchy hair loss. The pursuit of a full, blonde mane could ironically leave you with less hair than you started with. This is a side of the Viking beauty standard that the sagas don't linger on. They praise the result, the fair hair of the hero, but they tend to gloss over the painful and dignified process and its unpleasant aftermath. This is a common feature of historical beauty standards. We see the idealized image, but the painful, often dangerous, reality is written out of the story. The historical record tends to be a highlight reel, not the behind-the-scenes footage of scabby scalps and broken hair. One of the most interesting academic debates is whether this entire bleaching process might have had an unintended, but beneficial, side effect: pest control. Lye is a powerful disinfectant and pesticide. It's highly effective at killing lice, their eggs, nits, and other parasites that might make a home in a person's hair. Is it possible that the bleaching was, in part, a very extreme form of delicizing? Some scholars argue that this was a primary motivation, that the aesthetic benefit was almost a secondary bonus to the public health advantage. Others maintain that the focus was purely on appearance, and the delicizing effect was just a happy accident. The truth is likely somewhere in the middle. In a world where lice were a constant nuisance, a beauty treatment that also solved that problem would have been incredibly appealing. It's that classic Viking blend of practicality and vanity. You get to look like a hero while simultaneously exterminating parasites. As your dark roots begin to emerge, creating a distinct line of demarcation on your head, you are faced with a choice. Do you endure the burning and the damage all over again to maintain the blonde ideal? Or do you give up, allowing your natural color to grow back and accepting a few awkward, multi-tone months? Looking around, you see the evidence of the struggle on others. You see a man whose beard is a patchy mix of blonde and brown. Perhaps he's growing it out. You see a woman whose brilliant blonde braids end in dark, telltale roots. Maintaining this look is a relentless chore. It requires a level of dedication that not everyone can sustain. For now, you decide to persist. The social currency that comes with being fair-haired is too valuable to give up easily. So you acquire another bar of the Lyso. You brace yourself for the familiar sting. You accept the brittle texture and the itchy scalp as part of the price. Beauty is pain, as the saying goes. And in the Viking world, this is a literal, chemical truth. But as you prepare to reapply the paste, you realize that hair color is just one part of the equation. There's another way to use your hair to signal your status and identity, one that involves less chemistry and more intricate craftsmanship. The art of the braid. Now that you've recommitted to maintaining your hard-won blonde hair, it's time to style it. Simply having long, bleached hair isn't enough. In the Viking world, the way you wear your hair is a language all its own. It can communicate your marital status, your profession, your social standing, and even your recent accomplishments. A simple, loose style might be fine for around the longhouse, but for any kind of public appearance, a feast, a religious ceremony, or preparing for a journey, you need something more elaborate. The primary vocabulary of this silent language is the braid. For women, braids are a near universal part of the daily look. A married woman, in particular, would almost always wear her hair up, often in intricate, not so complex braided styles, covered by a headscarf or a cap when in public. Unmarried girls might wear their hair long and loose or in simpler braids, like two pigtails. The act of braiding a woman's hair was often a communal activity, a time for women to gather, socialize, and help each other with styles that would be impossible to create on one's own. You might sit for an hour while your sister or a friend works you long, bleached hair into a complex pattern of interlocking braids, perhaps weaving in colorful ribbons or thin leather strips to add a splash of color. The styles are varied and complex. You might see a herringbone braid, a fistate braid, or multiple small braids pulled back into a single, elegant knot at the back of the head, known as a Valkyria knot or a knot of the slain. This particular knot, a tri-point design, is a recurring symbol in Viking art, found on picture stones on rune stone S. While we call it a Valkyria knot today, its true meaning is still debated by historians. Was it a symbol of Odin, a protective charm, a marker for a warrior's family? Whatever its original significance, its use in hairstyling suggests it carried a powerful symbolic weight. To wear it in your hair was to connect yourself to the deeper, mythological currents of your culture. For men, the styles could be just as varied and significant. While the classic bowl cut with long back seen in many TV shows is a popular depiction, the reality was likely more diverse. Archaeological evidence, like the carvings on the Osberger ship or the picture stones of Gotland, shows warriors with a wide array of hairstyles. Some have long, flowing hair. Some have their hair tied back in a simple ponytail or bun at the nape of the neck. This style, sometimes called a mare's tail, was practical for keeping hair out of the eyes during a fight. But one of the most distinctive and debated male hairstyles is the so-called Ragnar or reverse mullet look. Shaved sides and back with a long top section that could be braided. The historical evidence for this specific style is somewhat thin, coming from a few scattered accounts and artistic depictions that are open to interpretation. An English cleric wrote of the Danish fashion with a bared neck and blinded eyes, which some interpret as referring to this kind of hairstyle long in the front, short in the back. Whether it was a widespread trend or a more niche, warrior-specific look is a topic of ongoing discussion, but it certainly fits the Viking ethos. Practical for battle, less hair for enemies to grab from behind while still allowing for a long, impressive, and style-able section on top. Imagine a warrior preparing for a raid. He might have a friend or family member tightly braid this long top section, perhaps weaving in beads of amber or silver rings, one for each enemy slain. The braid itself becomes a resume, a visual record of his prowess in battle. It's both a decoration and a warning. When combined with a bleached blonde color and uneatly trimmed, also bleached beard, the look would be incredibly striking and intimidating. Creating these braids, especially the more complex ones, requires skill and patience. Your fingers would become adept at weaving the 3, 4, or even 5 strands of hair into a tight, uniform pattern. You would learn how to section the hair perfectly, how to keep the tension even, and how to secure the end of the braid with a small leather tie or a metal ring. It's a form of textile art, but the medium is human hair. These hairstyles are not just about fashion. They are deeply practical. In a world of sailing, farming, and fighting, long, loose hair is a liability. It can get caught in a ship's rigging, tangled in a tool, or grabbed by an opponent in a skirmish. Braiding keeps it secure, controlled, and out of the way. It's the perfect fusion of form and function, a way to be both beautiful and battle-ready. So use it patiently as a friend weaves your brittle blonde hair into a series of tight braids, pulling them back from your face. The slight pull on your scalp feels grounding. Each twist and turn of the hair is a small act of creating order out of chaos. When it's done, you feel different, more put together, more serious. You are no longer just a person with bleached hair. You are a person whose appearance tells a story. And as you prepare to step into the world, you know there is one final touch to complete the look. A touch that adds drama, intensity, and a hint of poison to your eyes. With your hair, now a beacon of bleached and braided perfection, you turn your attention to your face. The look is not yet complete. The Viking aesthetic, especially for moments of high drama like a feast or a fight, demands a certain intensity. You need to frame your eyes, to make them the focal point of your face. This is where the final, and perhaps most globally recognized, cosmetic comes into play. Kohl, a dark, dramatic eyeliner that will make your gaze seem deeper, more piercing, and altogether more intimidating. This isn't a uniquely Viking practice. The use of kohl to line the eyes is an ancient tradition, stretching back thousands of years to ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Indus Valley. What's fascinating is how this practice found a home so far north, adopted and adapted by the people of the fjords. It demonstrates that the Vikings were not an isolated people. They were part of a vast network of trade and cultural exchange. The idea of lining your eyes, and perhaps even the materials themselves, traveled along the same river routes and sea lanes as amber, silver, and silver. You look around the longhouse. It's not just the women. Many of the men, especially the warriors, also wear it. Outer women. The kohl might be applied to create a sultry, mysterious look. Older men, The effect is different. It's about aggression. The dark liner, smudged around the eyes, reduces the glare of the sun on snow or water, a practical benefit, but it also creates a shadowy, almost mask-like appearance. It makes the whites of the eyes stand out more, making the gaze more direct and unsettling. It's a form of war paint, designed to dehumanize the wearer just enough to make them appear more fearsome. So, you decide to apply it. You have a small, carved bone pot, or perhaps a clamshell, that holds your supply of this precious black powder. It's a fine, dark gray dust that glitters faintly in the firelight. It doesn't look like the smooth, creamy eyelaters of the modern world. It's a raw, mineral substance. You also have an applicator, a thin, pointed stick made of bronze, bone, or ivory. You dip the tip of the applicator into a drop of water or oil to moisten it. Then dip the wet tip into the pot of kohl powder. A small amount of the black dust clings to the stick. The process requires a steady hand, leaning close to a polished piece of metal that serves as a rudimentary mirror, or perhaps just trusting your muscle memory. You carefully draw the applicator along your lash lines. You trace the shape of your eye, from the inner corner to the outer edge, leaving a thick, dark line. You do this for both the upper and lower lids. The powder feels cool and slightly gritty against your skin. The goal is not a subtle, fine line. It's a bold, heavy-handed statement. You might even smudge it with your fingertip to create a smoky or more dramatic effect that surrounds the entire eye. The result is instantaneous. Your eyes, which might be blue or gray or green, now look shockingly vibrant, framed by the stark black pigment, combined with your pale, bleached hair. The contrast is electric. It's a look designed to be seen, to be noticed, to make an impact. It transforms you from an ordinary person into a character, someone who looks like they have a story to tell. The Arab diplomat Ibn Fadlan, the same one who was so appalled by the Vikings' communal washing habits, was also struck by their use of eye makeup. He wrote, "Both men and women among them use a kind of indelible cosmetic for the eyes." The fact that he called it indelible suggests that it was a very effective, long-lasting formula. He went on to say that when they use it, their beauty is enhanced. It's a rare moment of aesthetic appreciation from an otherwise highly critical observer. It tells us that even to outsiders, the effect was undeniably powerful. But what exactly is this black powder you've just painted around your eyes? You might assume it's made from soot or charcoal, a simple, harmless substance. But that's where the cruel beauty of the Viking standard reveals its most insidious side. The most effective, long-lasting, and desirable form of kohl was not made from burnt wood. It was mineral-based, and the primary mineral used was galena, a natural form of lead sulfide. You have just lined your eyes with a toxic heavy metal. This is the secret ingredient to your deep, dramatic gaze, and it comes with a terrible, hidden cost. As you blink, feeling the slight weight of the powder on your lashes, you are completely unaware of the slow, creeping danger you've just invited into your body. You admire your reflection in a polished bronze disc. The effect is complete. The pale blonde hair, the intricate braids, and now, the dark, dramatic eyes. You look like a figure from the sagas. But let's take a closer look at that little pot of black powder you just used. You believe it's just kohl, a simple cosmetic, but the story of what's inside is far more complex and dangerous. The powder is a deep, shimmering black. Its primary ingredient is a mineral called galena, which is the natural ore of lead. When crushed into a fine powder, it becomes lead sulfide, PBS. This is what gives the kohl its dark, dense pigment and its long-lasting, indelible quality that so impressed Ibn Fadl. But galena wasn't the only ingredient. Viking-era kohl was often a carefully prepared mixture. To make it even darker and more intense, it might have been mixed with finely ground charcoal or soot from oil lamps. To make it smoother and easier to apply, it would be blended with a bit of animal fat or oil. Sometimes, other minerals were added for specific properties. A small amount of crushed St. Ibnite antimine sulfide might be included. Antimine was believed by many ancient cultures, including the Romans and Egyptians, to have medicinal properties, particularly for protecting against eye infections and the evil eye. It's a fascinating example of how cosmetics and medicine were often intertwined. The Vikings, through their extensive trade routes, likely adopted these beliefs along with the materials themselves. So, when you apply your eyeliner, you might believe you are not only beautifying yourself, but also warding off sickness and bad luck. The historical evidence for this specific chemical makeup is compelling. Archaeologists have analyzed the residue found in small cosmetic pots from Viking Age sites and have confirmed the presence of lead sulfide as the main component. This wasn't a cheap or easy material to acquire. Galena had to be mined, processed, and then traded, often over long distances. Your little pot of eyeliner is a luxury item, a small piece of a vast economic network that connected Scandinavian raiders to mining sites in other parts of Europe or even the Middle East. It's another small status symbol, proving you have the means to participate in this fashionable and toxic trend. Why use a known poison for makeup? The simple and unsettling answer is that they likely didn't know it was a poison in the way we do today. The concept of chronic, low-dose heavy metal poisoning was completely unknown. They understood acute poison's a toxic plant, a snake bite, but the idea that a substance applied in small amounts over many years could slowly and silently destroy your health was beyond their medical framework. To them, lead was just a useful metal. It was heavy, malleable, and easy to work with. Galena was simply a rock that produced a fantastic black powder for their eyes. They judged it by its immediate, visible effects. It looked great, and it stayed on all day. The long-term, invisible effects were not part of the equation. This is a recurring theme throughout the history of cosmetics. For centuries, people have used products containing lead, mercury, and arsenic to achieve a desired look, completely unaware of the devastating health consequences. The Roman elite used lead-based powders to whiten their faces. Elizabethan courtiers did the same, achieving a ghostly white pallor that often led to skin decay, hair loss, and neurological damage. You, in your Viking longhouse, are part of this long, tragic tradition of suffering for beauty in ways you don't even understand. There is, however, an ongoing and very curious academic debate about this. Some recent scientific studies on ancient Egyptian cosmetics have suggested that lead compounds, in very low concentrations, might stimulate an immune response in the eye that could help fight off certain types of bacterial infections. The theory is that while lead is toxic, in the specific context of the ancient world, the short-term benefit of preventing a potentially blinding eye infection might have outweighed the long-term risk of lead poisoning. Could this apply to the Vikings as well? It's a controversial idea. Did the Vikings anecdotally observe that people who wore kohl had fewer eye problems, leading them to believe it was good for the eyes? Or was this effect negligible, and the real driver was purely fashion? As of now, there is no consensus. It remains one of those historians are still arguing points that make the past so fascinating. But for you, standing in the firelight, None of this matters. You don't know about lead sulfide or immune responses. You only know that your eyes look striking. You feel powerful. You've completed the trifecta of Viking beauty. The clean grooming, the bleached hair, and the dramatic eyes. You are ready to face the world. You look fierce, fashionable, and ready for anything. You are also, slowly and unknowingly, poisoning yourself. And yet, this isn't even the most extreme body modification you might undertake to fit in. The most painful, the most shocking, and the most permanent statement of your Viking identity is yet to come. And it involves a file, a steady hand, and your front teeth. You feel confident, powerful. Your look is complete. The bleached hair, the dark-rimmed eyes, it's the epitome of Viking chic. You wear this look daily, reapplying the kohl every morning as part of your grooming ritual. You are proud of your appearance, unaware that the very thing you use to enhance your beauty is slowly betraying you. The lead-based kohl you paint around your eyes is a silent threat, and its effects are not immediate or obvious. They are a slow, creeping accumulation, a debt that your body will pay over years. Each time you apply the kohl, a minuscule amount of the lead sulfide is absorbed through the delicate mucous membranes of your eyes and the surrounding skin. A tiny bit might flake off and get into your tear ducts, eventually traveling down into your digestive system. It's a small dose, so small that you don't notice a thing. There's no immediate sickness, no sudden pain. This is the insidious nature of chronic lead poisoning. It doesn't announce itself. It builds up, molecule by molecule, in your blood, soft tissues, and, most permanently, in your bones. Over months and years, the first symptoms might begin to appear, but they are frustratingly vague and easily mistaken for other common ailments. You might feel persistent, low-grade fatigue that you attribute to hard work or the changing seasons. You might suffer from headaches, a general sense of irritability, or a metallic taste in your mouth. You might experience joint and muscle pain, a common complaint in a physically demanding world. None of these symptoms are dramatic enough to raise alarm. They are just the background noise of life. You would never connect this general feeling of being unwell to the little pot of black powder you use every morning. As the lead levels in your body continue to rise, the symptoms become more pronounced and more serious. You might develop abdominal pain, a condition known as lead colic, which can be severe and debilitating. You might notice a tremor in your hands, making fine motor tasks more difficult. Your memory might start to fail you. You forget names, misplace tools, and struggle to follow conversations. This cognitive decline, this brain fog, is one of the most devastating effects of lead poisoning, as it robs you of your sharpness and your wit, qualities highly valued in Viking society. The physical signs can become more visible, too. A telltale sign of advanced lead poisoning, though not always present, is the appearance of a Burton's lot, a thin, blue-black line that appears on the gums at the base of the teeth. It's caused by a reaction between the circulating lead and the sulfur produced by bacteria in the mouth. It's a grim, built-in indicator of the poison accumulating within, a permanent stain on your smile. Your skin might also take on a pale, sallow complexion as the lead interferes with your body's ability to produce red blood cells, leading to a type of anemia. Historians and bioarchaeologists can sometimes see the evidence of this suffering written directly into the bones of ancient peoples by analyzing the skeletal remains from Viking-era graves. They can measure the concentration of lead locked within the bone tissue. These studies have confirmed that a significant portion of the population, particularly in urban trading centers where access to imported goods like coal was greater, had elevated lead levels. The bones tell a silent story of the toxic cost of fashion. The academic debate here doesn't question the toxicity of lead, but rather the severity and prevalence of poisoning in the Viking population. How much coal were they using? And how often? Was it a daily cosmetic for everyone, or a special occasion item for the wealthy elite? Some scholars argue that the exposure was likely limited and that severe. Debilitating cases of lead poisoning were probably rare. They suggest that the amounts absorbed would have been small, leading to only minor, subclinical effects. Others argue that in a world without modern public health awareness, exposure could have been much higher. People might have been exposed not just through cosmetics, but through lead-glazed pottery, pewter drinking vessels, and even lead weights used for fishing nets. In this view, the kohl was just one part of a larger, lead-saturated environment. The true impact on the overall health and lifespan of the Viking people is still a matter of scientific investigation and debate. You, of course, know nothing of this. You just know that some days you feel inexplicably tired, that your joints ache a little more than they used to. You see an older woman in the village whose hands tremble, a man who has grown withdrawn and forgetful. You see these things as the natural, unavoidable consequences of aging in a harsh world. You see them as fate, as the work of the Norns weaving the threads of life. You would never suspect that the cause could be something so mundane, so deliberate, as the pursuit of a beautiful, dramatic eye. You are paying a price for your appearance, but the bill is written in a language your body understands long before your mind ever will. You stand with a group of warriors, preparing for a journey. The air is tense with anticipation. You look at the faces around you. Everyone who can is sporting the same look. The bleached hair, the carefully groomed beard, and the dark, kohl-rimmed eyes. It's a uniform, but as you look closer, you realize this isn't just about looking fashionable or attractive in the way you might for a feast. The context has changed. Here, on the brink of conflict or a dangerous voyage, the makeup takes on a different, more primal meaning. It's not for seduction. It's for intimidation. The primary purpose of the kohl, in a warrior context, is to create a mask. It enhances the natural shadows of the face, making the brow seem heavier and the eyes more deeply set. This creates an effect known as the predatory gaze. By obscuring the subtle emotional cues that are normally visible around the eyes, the slight crinkling of a smile, the faint lines of worry, the kohl gives your face an impassive, unreadable quality. When you stare at an opponent, they don't see a person. They see a pair of intense, disembodied eyes glaring out from a shadowy mask. This is psychologically unnerving. It projects an aura of cold, emotional aggression. This practice is part of a broader human tradition of using face paint for warfare. Cultures all over the world, from the Celtic warriors painting themselves with woad to the Native American tribes, with their own complex systems of war paint, have understood the power of altering the face. It serves two functions. First, it terrifies the enemy. A line of warriors with uniform, menacing paint looks like a single, monstrous entity, not a group of individuals. Second, and perhaps more importantly, it transforms the wearer. The act of applying the paint is a ritual. It helps the warrior cross a psychological threshold from their normal, peaceful self into a state of heightened aggression required for battle. It's a way of putting on your war face, both literally and metaphorically. The kohl is your suit. The bleached blonde hair plays a similar role in this theater of intimidation. To their enemies in England, France, and beyond, the Vikings often appeared as a terrifying, almost supernatural force. Their height, their ferocity, and their otherness were key parts of their psychological advantage. The bright, almost unnaturally blonde hair would have amplified this effect. Imagine a raiding party leaping from a long ship, the sun glinting off their pale hair and beards. They wouldn't look like ordinary soldiers. They would look like something out of a myth, a host of avenging angels or pale demons, depending on your perspective. The Vikings understood this power of image. They were masters of branding, and their brand was fear. Even the sagas hint at this. While they praise beauty, they also praise a fearsome appearance. A hero is often described as grim-faced or having a piercing gaze. These are not the descriptors of a gentle soul. They are the traits of a man you do not want to cross. The grooming and the cosmetics are all tools to help cultivate this specific, valuable persona. There's a fascinating and somewhat controversial theory among some historians about the legendary berserkers, the Viking warriors said to have fought in a trance-like fury. The sagas described them as biting their shields and howling like wild animals, seemingly immune to pain. While many theories exist to explain this phenomenon, from hallucinogenic mushrooms to psychological conditioning, one less dramatic but plausible element could be their appearance. A berserker, working himself into a frenzy, would likely have used every tool at his disposal to appear as terrifying as possible. The wild hair, the wide, kohl-rimmed eyes, the bared teeth, all of this would have been part of the performance of rage, designed to break an enemy's morale before the first blow was even struck. This idea that beauty standards can be weaponized is a powerful one. It challenges our modern conception of cosmetics as something purely for personal enhancement or attraction. For the Vikings, it was a strategic tool. Your face was part of your equipment, just like your shield and your axe. You prepared it for battle, the lead-based kohl that was slowly poisoning you. In the short term, it might just save your life by making an enemy hesitate for a split second. The lie that burned your scalp. It created an image that could cause fear and confusion in the ranks of your opponents. The pain was an investment in your own survival. But as you stand there, feeling the weight of your axe in one hand and the grit of the kohl on your eyelids, you notice something else. You see a veteran warrior nearby, a man who has seen many battles. He smiles a grim, tight-lipped smile, and you see it. Something that makes all the pain of bleaching hair and the slow poison of kohl seem like minor inconveniences. You see the deep, horizontal grooves carved into his front teeth, filled with a dark red pigment. It's a terrifying, deliberate disfigurement. It's the ultimate Viking fashion statement. A permanent declaration of toughness that turns a smile into a threat. And you realize, with a sinking feeling, that to truly be counted among the elite, you may have to consider the file. Your gaze is fixed on the veteran warrior's mouth. When he speaks, you can't help but stare. Carved into the flat surface of his upper front teeth are two, maybe three, perfectly parallel horizontal lines. The grooves are deep and clean, as if cut by a master craftsman. And inside the grooves, you can see the faint remnants of a dark pigment, perhaps black or a deep red, like dried blood. It transforms the most basic human expression, a smile, into something deeply unsettling. It's a silent snarl, a permanent display of aggression etched directly into his bones. This is, without a doubt, the most extreme, painful, and shocking of all Viking beauty standards. It's a practice that makes the chemical burn of lice open the slow poison of lead kohl seem like child's play. This is intentional dental modification, a deliberate and permanent scarring of the most visible part of your body. You've seen it before, on a few of the most respected and feared warriors in your community, but you never dared to look too closely. Now, seeing it up close, you are struck by the sheer audacity of it. Archaeological discoveries have confirmed that this wasn't just a myth or a one-off eccentricity. In various Viking-era burial sites, particularly on the Swedish island of Gotland, but also in other parts of Scandinavia, archaeologists have unearthed dozens of male skulls with these distinct dental modifications. The skulls almost exclusively belong to men of fighting age. The marks are almost always on the upper incisors and canines. They consist of one or more deep, horizontal grooves filed across the front of the tooth. The precision of the grooves suggests they were not accidental marks from, say, pulling ropes with one's teeth. They are deliberate, patterned, and required a significant amount of skill to create. As you look at the warrior's teeth, your mind immediately goes to the how. How could this possibly be done? The thought alone is enough to make you cringe. There was no anesthetic, no high-speed dental drill. The tool used was likely a small, sharp metal file. The person undergoing the procedure would have had to sit perfectly still, while a skilled individual, perhaps a blacksmith, a wood carver, or a specialized tooth carver, painstakingly, unforcefully scraped away the enamel and dentin of their teeth. The sound alone a grating, high-pitched screech of metal on tooth would have been excruciating. And the pain, the raw, deep, vibrating agony sent directly into the nerves of the jaw, is almost unimaginable. Why would anyone voluntarily submit to this torture? This is the central question that has fascinated and puzzled historians and archaeologists for years. Unlike bleaching your hair or wearing eyeliner, this wasn't about conforming to a general standard of beauty. This seems to have been a much more exclusive practice, likely confined to a specific social group, probably a warrior brotherhood or a close fraternity of elite fighters. It was a mark of belonging, a permanent badge of initiation. The leading theory is that it was a form of psychological warfare, a way to intimidate opponents in the heat of battle. Imagine facing a Viking warrior in a shield wall. He's screaming a battle cry, and you see these dark, striped teeth. It's an image that's profoundly unnatural and deeply menacing. It signals that this person has not only endured, but actively sought out extreme pain. It says, if I am willing to do this to myself, imagine what I am willing to do to you. It's a nonverbal threat of the highest order. Another theory suggests it was a mark of status within the Viking community itself. It was a way to display your courage, your toughness, and your ability to endure pain without flinching. In a society that valued martial prowess above almost all else, this was the ultimate boast. It was more permanent than a tattoo, more impressive than a fancy sword. It was a modification of your very skeleton, a testament to your warrior ethos that you carried with you to the grave. The fact that it was likely performed by a skilled artisan meant it probably wasn't cheap, adding a layer of economic status to the display of physical fortitude. You shudder, running your tongue over your own smooth, unmarked teeth. The enamel feels thin and fragile all of a sudden. The social pressure in the longhouse is one thing, but the pressure within a band of warriors is another thing entirely. It's a world of constant one-upmanship, of proving your worth not just to others, but to yourself. You see a younger warrior in your group, a man eager to make a name for himself, staring at the veteran's teeth with a look not of horror, but of aspiration. He sees a goal. He sees the next step in his own journey to becoming a legend. The thought occurs to you, unwelcome and chilling. Will you be expected to do the same? The idea has taken root in your mind, a disturbing seed planted by the sight of that veteran warrior's smile. You find yourself watching the younger, ambitious warriors in your group. You hear the hushed, admiring tones they use when talking about men with marked teeth. It's becoming clear that this isn't just an eccentric choice. in certain circles. It's a powerful statement, a dividing line between the serious and the merely competent. You are now faced with a decision, one that feels both insane and, in the strange logic of your world, completely rational. Do you choose to undergo this agonizing procedure? To an outsider, the choice seems obvious. No. Why would anyone voluntarily inflict such pain upon themselves for purely cosmetic reasons? But you are not an outsider. You are a Viking, living within a specific and demanding honor culture. Your reputation, your eye, is the most valuable thing you possess. It's a complex mix of your skill, your courage, your wealth, and the respect you command from your peers. Making the choice to have your teeth filed is a calculated investment in that reputation. Let's break down the reasons why you, a perfectly sane individual, would actively seek out this ordeal. The first and most powerful motivator is belonging. You want to be part of the elite. You want to be accepted into the inner circle of proven warriors. This dental modification acts as a powerful in-group signal. It's a permanent, undeniable sign that you share the values and the fortitude of the group. When you smile, your teeth do the talking. They say, "I am one of them." In a world where your survival can depend on the loyalty and trust of the men standing next to you in a shield wall, this kind of visible, costly commitment is incredibly valuable. It builds a bond that goes deeper than words. The second reason is status. This isn't just about fitting in. It's about standing out. Having your teeth filed is a conspicuous display of toughness. It's a form of costly signaling, a concept from evolutionary biology. The idea is that for a signal to be honest and reliable, it must be costly to the signaler. Anyone can say they're brave, but not everyone is willing to have their teeth filed down to the nerve without anesthetic to prove it. The sheer pain and risk involved makes the signal credible. It's a shortcut to respect. People will look at you differently. They will assume you are tougher, more disciplined, and more dangerous. This can translate into better opportunities, a more prominent place in the battle line, a larger share of the plunder, or the respect of a powerful chieftain. Then there is the element of personal identity. This is about more than just what others think of you. It's about how you see yourself. The world is a chaotic and dangerous place. By choosing to endure this ordeal, you are asserting control over your own body and your own destiny. You are turning your body into a canvas for your own story. You are actively shaping yourself into the image of the hero you aspire to be. The pain of the procedure becomes a rite of passage, a crucible that burns away your old self and forges a new, harder identity. You emerge from the experience not just looking different, but feeling different. You have faced a terrifying ordeal and conquered it. That knowledge becomes a source of inner strength. The academic debate on this topic is fierce. What was the primary driver for this practice? Was it social pressure, a way to gain entry into an exclusive club? Or was it more about psychological warfare, a tactic to intimidate enemies? Some archaeologists, pointing to the discovery of these skulls in mass graves of warriors, lean towards the intimidation theory. They argue it was a practical to love war. Other scholars, focusing on the craftsmanship and the likely cost, lean towards the status theory. They see it as a form of conspicuous consumption, but the currency is pain instead of gold. The truth is, it was probably a potent cocktail of all these things: a desire to belong, a need for status, a toll for intimidation, and a personal rite of passage. So you make your choice. You seek out the man in your community known for this work. He might be the blacksmith, whose hands are strong and steady from hammering iron. Or he might be a specialist, a man who has perfected this gruesome art. You approach him, perhaps with a gift of silver coin, a fine whetstone, A skin of imported wine. It's a transaction. You are commissioning a piece of art, and the canvas is your own face. He looks at you, his eyes assessing your resolve. He asks if you are sure. You know it, your heart pounding in your chest. The appointment is made. There is no turning back now. You have willingly chosen to walk into the heart of the pain. The day has come. You feel a knot of cold dread in your stomach, a stark contrast to the forced calm you're trying to project. You walk to the craftsman's workshop, which is little more than a smile. Smoky, hot on the edge of the settlement. The air inside smells of hot metal, charcoal, and something else of fate. Acrid scent that you can't quite place. The ghost of previous procedures. The craftsman is waiting for you. He is a large man with powerful forearms and hands stained with soot. He doesn't smile. This is serious business. He gestures for you to sit on a low stool in the middle of the room. There is no preparation, no comforting ritual. He simply lays out his tools on a piece of leather. They are few and simple. There is a small metal file, about the width of your finger, with a rough, cross-hatched surface. Its wooden handle is dark and smooth, worn down by years of use. There might be a small AWL or a pointed blade, perhaps for marking the initial line, and there is a wedge of wood. This, you realize with a jolt of fear, is for you to bite down on, to hold your jaw steady and to give the craftsman the resistance he needs to do his work. He tells you to open your mouth. You comply, your jaw feeling stiffened, uncooperative. He inspects your front teeth, running a calloused finger over their surface. He nods, as if satisfied with the canvas. He might ask you how many lines you want. 2 is common. 3 is for the truly committed. You hold up the fingers, your voice having abandoned you. He takes the pointed tool and, with terrifying precision, scratches a faint, horizontal guideline across the enamel of your two front teeth. The scraping sensation sends a shiver down your spine. But this is just the prelude. Now for the main event. He hands you the wooden wedge and instructs you to place it between your back molars and bite down. Hard. This serves to stabilize your entire skull. He tells you not to move, no matter what. He picks up the file. You close your eyes, bracing for the impact. The first touch of the file to your tooth is a shock. It's not just a sound. It's a vibration that you feel deep in your bones. A resonant, grating hum that seems to fill your entire head. The sound is a dry, high-pitched screech, like a nail being dragged across slate. It's a sound that sets your teeth on edge, quite literally. Then the pain begins. It starts as a dull, jarring pressure, but as the file scrapes away the hard, protective layer of enamel, it quickly sharpens into a searing, white-hot agony. The file is generating heat through friction, and you can feel your tooth getting hot, a terrifying sensation. He works with a steady, rhythmic motion. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Each pass of the file sends a fresh jolt of pure, unadulterated pain directly into the pulp, the living nerve at the center of your tooth. Your vision whites out at the edges. Your hands are clenched so tightly that your knuckles are white. Every muscle in your body is screaming at you to pull away, to run, to make it stop. But you can't. You are held in place by the social pressure, by your own commitment, and by the craftsman's heavy hand on your shoulder. You focus on the wedge between your molars, biting down with all your might to keep from screaming. Tears stream from the corners of your eyes, not from sadness, but from sheer, overwhelming nerve pain. The process is painstakingly slow. The craftsman has to be precise, ensuring the groove is perfectly straightened of a uniform depth. He works on one tooth, then the other, keeping the lines parallel. The smell of burning tooth enamel, that acrid scent you couldn't identify earlier, fills the air. It's a sickening smell. The smell of your own body being deliberately damaged. You can taste the tooth dust in your mouth. The fine, gritty powder, after what feels like an eternity, but was probably only 10 or 15 minutes. He stops. The screeching silence that follows is almost as shocking as the noise itself. He removes the file, and you can feel the cool air hit the raw, exposed dentin of your teeth, sending another wave of sensitivity through you. He inspects his work, nods once, then steps back. It's over. You spit out the wooden wedge, your jaw aching from the pressure. You run your tongue over your teeth. The surface feels alien, violated. You can feel the deep, sharp-edged grooves. The pain is subsiding from a sharp, screaming agony to a deep, throbbing ache that seems to pulse in time with your heartbeat. Your entire jaw feels bruised and tender. The craftsman hands you a cup of water, and you rinse the gritty dust and blood from your mouth. He tells you the pain will fade in a day or two, but the sensitivity to hot and cold will last for weeks, maybe longer. You have survived. You have paid the price. You have earned your marks. The throbbing in your jaw has subsided to a dull, persistent ache. Every time you draw a breath of cool air, a sharp pang of sensitivity reminds you of the ordeal you've just endured. But the physical pain is already being overshadowed by a rising sense of pride. You survived. You didn't flinch. You've earned your stripes. Literally. But the modification is not yet complete. The grooves are there, raw and pale against the rest of your tooth, to make them truly stand out. To complete the terrifying aesthetic, they need to be filled with color. The craftsman who filed your teeth now takes on the role of an artist. He brings out a small pot containing a thick, dark paste. This is the pigment that will be used to stain your freshly carved dental work. The exact composition of this pigment is another area of active research and debate among archaeologists. What did they use to create these lasting colors? The evidence is sparse, as organic materials rarely survive for 1,000 years. However, based on what we know about Viking-era pigments used in other contexts, like painting, wood, or illuminating manuscripts, we can make some educated guesses. For a black color, the most likely candidate is a fine powder made from charcoal, soot, or a mixture of both. This would be mixed with a binder, something to make it stick in the grooves. A common and readily available binder would be beeswax or pine resin. The craftsman would warm a small amount of this resin until it was soft and sticky, then thoroughly mix in the black charcoal powder to create a thick, tar-like paste. For a red color, the options are more varied. The most dramatic and symbolically potent pigment would be derived from iron oxide, essentially rust, which creates a deep, earthy red. This pigment, known as red ochre, has been used by humans for tens of thousands of years and carries a powerful association with blood, life, and violence. Using red would make the grooves look like they were perpetually filled with fresh or dried blood. A truly fearsome sight. Another, more speculative, possibility for reed is the use of plant-based dyes, perhaps from the madder root, which was a common source of reed dye for textiles. However, these dyes are less permanent and might not have adhered to tooth material as effectively as a mineral pigment. The application process is just as delicate as the filing. The craftsman takes a small, pointed tool, perhaps the same one used to scratch the guidelines, and scoops up a tiny amount of the colored paste. He then carefully, meticulously, works the pigment into the grooves he just carved. He presses it down firmly, ensuring it fills every nook and cranny of the raw, porous dentin. This part of the process is less about excruciating pain and more about a strange, uncomfortable pressure. You can feel him pushing, unpacking the material into the sensitive trenches in your teeth. Once the grooves are filled, the excess pigment is wiped away from the surface of the tooth, leaving behind a stark, clean line of color. The effect is immediate and shocking. Your ordinary teeth have been transformed into a piece of wearable, intimidating art. The dark lines break up the natural shape of your smile, creating a visual disruption that is inherently menacing. Now, you have to let it set. The craftsman might instruct you not to eat or drink for a few hours, to allow the wax or resin binder to cool and harden completely. Over time, the color will fade with eating, drinking, and the natural abrasion of daily life. The pigment would need to be repleted periodically to maintain its vibrant, threatening appearance. This ray application would become another part of your grooming ritual, like reapplying kohl or touching up your bleached roots. It's another act of maintenance in the high-effort world of Viking fashion. The question of whether they used actual blood to color the grooves is a tantalizing and gruesome one, but it remains purely in the realm of speculation. There is no archaeological evidence to support it, and from a practical standpoint, blood is not a very effective or permanent pigment. It would quickly wash away and decay. The use of more stable, mineral-based pigments like red ochre is far more likely. However, the symbolism of blood is undeniable. The red color was almost certainly chosen to evoke the idea of blood, even if it wasn't the real thing. As you leave the craftsman's hut, you force a slight, tight-lipped smile. The ache in your jaw is a small price to pay for the look you now possess. You have permanently altered your body to align with the most extreme ideals of your warrior culture. You carry a permanent warning on your face, a story of pain, endurance, and belonging etched into your very bones. You walk back into the main longhouse, your jaw still aching, but your posture straighter than before. You feel a new kind of confidence, the kind that comes from surviving a self-imposed ordeal. The first person you see is the old veteran warrior, the one whose smile inspired this painful journey. He catches your eye, and you give him a slow, deliberate smile, revealing your newly marked teeth. He looks at you for a long moment, his expression unreadable, and then gives a single, almost imperceptible nod of approval. In that small gesture, you feel the validation you were seeking. You have been accepted into the club. The primary purpose of this brutal modification now becomes your lived reality. Your teeth are no longer just for chewing. They are a tool, a weapon, a business card. They are your cruel, permanent name tag in the warrior society. When you deal with traders, negotiate for a place on a ship, or simply stand your ground in a dispute over a flagon of mead, your smile does half the work for you. It silently communicates a history of pain and a capacity for violence. People listen a little more closely. They are a little less likely to challenge you. In the context of battle, the effect is magnified tenfold. You are in a shield wall, shoulder to shoulder with your brothers in arms, many of whom bear the same marks. The enemy line is just a few feet away. The air is thick with tension, the sounds of taunts and nervous prayers. You let out a ferocious battle cry, a guttural roar, and your mouth is wide open. The enemy soldier opposite you sees it. The bleached hair, the coal-blackened eyes, and the horrifying, striped teeth that look like a predator's snarl. For a split second, his training might falter. His confidence might crack. He sees a man who is not just a soldier, but something more primal, more terrifying. He sees a man who has branded himself for this very moment. That split second of hesitation is all the advantage you need. This is the very essence of psychological warfare. It's about winning the battle before the first blow is even struck. The dental filing is the ultimate expression of this philosophy. It's a permanent commitment to being intimidating. Unlike face paint that can be washed off, this mark is part of you. It tells the world that your identity as a warrior is not a role you play. It is who you are, down to the bone. This practice also serves to solidify the bonds within your own warrior group. You share a secret language of pain. When you see another man with filed teeth, you know what he has endured. There is an immediate, unspoken understanding and respect. It creates a powerful sense of camaraderie and delitism. You are the ones who are brave enough, or crazy enough, to go through with it. This shared experience forges a loyalty that is hard to break. It's the same principle behind many modern military or gang initiations. A shared, difficult, and often painful experience creates a bond that is stronger than mere friendship. However, there are also long-term physical consequences to consider. Filing away the protective enamel and dentin leaves your teeth incredibly vulnerable. The raw, exposed surfaces are much more susceptible to decay. In a world without dentists or fillings, a cavity could easily lead to a severe infection, an abscess, and in the worst cases, a systemic infection that could be fatal. The throbbing ache you feel now might be a temporary problem, but the risk of future, more serious dental issues is a permanent one. You have traded long-term dental health for short-term social and strategic advantage. It's a high-stakes gamble. Historians are still exploring the geographic and social distribution of this practice. Why are so many examples found on the island of Gotland? Was it a local fashion that started there and spread? Or was Gotland a major hub for a particular mercenary group or warrior cult that used this as their signature? The patterns in the archaeological record are like a cryptic map, hinting at social structures and connections that are lost to time. The debate over whether this was a widespread Viking phenomenon or a more localized, subcultural trend is ongoing. Some scholars argue that calling it a Viking practice is too broad, and that we should see it as a Gotland IC warrior practice. For example, but for you, in this moment, the academic distinctions don't matter. You are part of an elite, a man marked for war. Your smile is a threat. Your teeth are a trophy. You have used pain to purchase respect. And in your world, it feels like a bargain. You have become a walking, talking piece of propaganda for the Viking warrior ethos. You've lived with your new teeth for a few weeks. The initial, raw pain has faded, replaced by a dull sensitivity and an undeniable sense of pride. But as you observe the world around you, you start to notice the subtleties. Not every great warrior you admire has filed teeth. Some of the most respected, older veterans have smooth, unmarked incisors. You also see some younger, less experienced men who have the markings, wearing them like a borrowed cloak of toughness. This leads you to a more complex understanding of this practice. And it's here that you step into one of the biggest areas of confusion and debate for modern archaeologists. What did these dental modifications really mean? The easy answer is intimidation. And that's almost certainly part of the story. But as with most things in history, the easy answer is rarely the whole story. The archaeological evidence itself presents a puzzle. The grooves are found almost exclusively on the skulls of men, which strongly supports the connection to a male-dominated activity like warfare. The concentration of finds in specific areas, like Gotland, suggests it might have been a regional trend, a bit like a modern fashion that is popular in one city but not another. But the patterns of the grooves themselves are not uniform. Some skulls have one line, some have two or three, some have deep, wide grooves, while others have finer, more delicate lines. Some even have complex, crisscrossing patterns. This variation is what fuels the academic debate. If the sole purpose was to identify members of a single warrior fraternity, why wouldn't the marks be standardized? This has led to a number of competing theories. One theory is that the number and style of the grooves acted as a kind of rank insignia. A young warrior might start with a simple line after his first successful raid. After proving himself further, he might earn the right to add a second line. A truly legendary warrior might have 3 lines, or a more complex pattern, signifying his elite status. In this interpretation, the teeth become a permanent, wearable resume of a warrior's career. It's a compelling idea, but there is no direct evidence to prove it. We have no Viking warrior handbook that decodes the meaning of the stripes. Another theory suggests that the markings were not related to rank, but to specific groups or allegiances. Perhaps a warrior who served a particular chieftain on Gotland would have one style of marking, while a member of a different warband from mainland Sweden would have another. The teeth would function like a coat of arms or a gang sign, instantly identifying your affiliation. This could explain the variety in the patterns. This theory is also plausible, especially given the fluid, project-based nature of many Viking warbands, where clear signs of loyalty would be highly valuable. A third, more recent and intriguing theory, connects the practice not to other Vikings, but to outsiders. Some scholars have pointed out that the practice of dental modification was also present in other parts of the world, including parts of West Africa and the Americas. Given the Vikings' incredible reach as traders and travelers, is it possible that this was a practice they encountered abroad and adopted as a way of showing how well-traveled and cosmopolitan they were? In this view, the filed teeth are not a sign of being a pure Viking, but rather a sign of being a worldly, experienced merchant warrior who has seen the wider world. This would make it a symbol not of intimidation, but of sophistication and experience, a permanent souvenir from a long-distance voyage. This is perhaps the most controversial of the theories, as it challenges the traditional image of the practice as a purely internal, martial tradition. This is a classic case of what historians call an equifinality problem, where different starting points could lead to the same result. The marks on the skulls are the end point, but the reasons for making them are lost. We can only create logical hypotheses based on the limited data we have. Every few years, a new discovery or a new interpretation will cause the academic consensus to shift. The debate about the why of Viking dental modification is a living, breathing part of the study of this era. You, living inside this culture, probably don't see it as one single thing either. You see one man's teeth and know he did it to honor his chieftain. You see another's and know it was to mark his first long voyage. For your own part, you did it to be accepted, to be feared, and to feel like you belonged. The meaning is not a single, universal code. It's personal, contextual, and layered. The true significance of your painful smile is a story that only you and the people who know you can fully understand. And it's a story that will, for the most part, be lost to the mists of time, leaving future generations to guess at your motivations. You stand on the deck of a long ship, the wind whipping your bleached blonde braids across your face. The salt spray stings your eyes, but your kohl liner doesn't run. Your hand rests on the hilt of your axe, and when you grin at a shared joke with the man next to you, your filed teeth glint in the pale northern sun. You are the final product. You are the walking, breathing embodiment of the Viking ideal. But now, take a step back and look at the image you present to the world. It's a walking contradiction. On one hand, you are a meticulously groomed individual. You started your day with a wash. You combed your hair with a beautifully carved antler comb. You plucked your eyebrows, cleaned your ears, and applied makeup with a steady, practiced hand. You are wearing clean woolen clothes, fastened with ornate bronze brooches. By the standards of your time, you are incredibly sophisticated. You are a dandy, a peacock, a man who invests a significant amount of time, effort, and pain into his personal appearance. On the other hand, you are a predator. You are on this ship to go raiding. You are about to descend upon a foreign shore to take what you want through force and violence. Your very appearance has been weaponized. Your hair color is a banner of otherness. Your eye makeup is a mask of intimidation. Your teeth are a permanent snarl. You are a finely polished instrument of chaos. This is the central paradox of the Viking warrior. And it's what makes this culture so endlessly fascinating. How do we reconcile the image of the preening, fashion-conscious groomer with the image of the ruthless, violent plunderer? The answer is that for the Vikings, these two things were not in conflict. In fact, they were two sides of the same coin. Your elaborate appearance was not separate from your role as a warrior. It was essential to it. It was your uniform. Think of it this way. A modern soldier spends hours cleaning their rifle, polishing their boots, and perfectly pressing their uniform. They do this not because they are vain, but because it's a form of discipline. It shows respect for their profession, for their unit, and for themselves. It's a way of mentally preparing for the chaos of their job by first creating order in their immediate surroundings. Your grooming routine serves the exact same purpose. Combing your hair, braiding it tightly, applying your kohl. These are rituals that prepare you, mind and body, for the dangerous work ahead. It's a way of imposing order on yourself before you go out to impose your will on the world. This duality was often completely lost on the people the Vikings encountered. The monks in an English monastery, for example, would have seen only the second part of the paradox. They would see the terrifying, screaming figures leaping from their ships and see them as nothing more than godless barbarians, savage beasts. They would write about the heathen hordes and the wolves from the sea. They would not see the hours of careful grooming that went into creating that terrifying image. They saw the monster, not the man who meticulously crafted the monster's mask. Even your own name might reflect this. Many Viking names and nicknames were designed to sound impressive and intimidating. You might have names like Bjorn Bear, Ulfwulf, or Orin Serpent, or you might turn a nickname based on your deeds or appearance, like Harald Bluetooth, Eric Bloodaxe, or Sigurd Snake in the Eye. Your name, like your appearance, is part of your personal brand, a brand built on strength and fear. The academic world still grapples with this apparent contradiction. Were the Vikings sophisticated traders who sometimes engaged in violence? Or were they violent raiders who sometimes engaged in trade? This used to be a major point of contention, with some trade school historians emphasizing their peaceful commerce and others from the raid school focusing on their violent conquest. Today, most historians agree that this is a false dichotomy. They were both. They were pragmatic opportunists who would trade when it was profitable and trade when it was easier. Your finely groomed appearance was perfectly suited for both activities. It could impress a trading partner in Constantinople with your sophistication or terrify a farmer in northern Brema with your ferocity. It was an all-purpose tool for navigating a complex and dangerous world. So as the shore appears on the horizon, a thin, green line in the distance, you don't feel any sense of contradiction. You are fully integrated. The pain of the file, the sting of the lie, the poison in your kohl, they were all investments. They were the price you paid to become this person, this finely tuned weapon, this perfectly groomed predator. You are a work of art, and you are a force of nature. And for the people on that shore, you are a beautiful, terrifying nightmare about to become very, Very real. Let's pause for a moment on the deck of this ship. The raid can wait. Let's take stock of what you become. Not in terms of your character, but in terms of your stuff. Let's assemble your personal grooming kit. The collection of tools you, as a fashionable Viking, would likely have on your person or in your possession. This isn't just a list of items. It's a summary of your culture's obsession with a very specific and very brutal kind of beauty. First and foremost, you have your comb. This is the cornerstone of your entire grooming routine. It's likely a composite comb, made of several pieces of deer antler or bone, held together with bronze or iron rivets. The side plates are probably decorated with a simple, elegant pattern, like the ring and dot motif. It lives in a custom-made case, also made of antler, to protect its precious tines. This comb and case set might be dangling from a chain on your belt, or from the large brooches that fasten your cloak. It is your most public declaration that you are a clean and ordered person. You use it every day, without fail. Next in your pouch, you have your tweezers, a simple, elegant tool, probably cast from a single piece of bronze that is bent in half to create the springy tension. They are your tool for fine-tuning. You use them to pluck stray hairs from your beard to keep the lines sharp, to shape your eyebrows, and for the mundane but necessary task of removing splinters. They are a sign that your ruggedness is not accidental, but carefully curated. Then there's the ear spoon. This is the oddball of your collection, the tool that seems most surprising to a modern eyes. It's a small, delicate scoop on a long handle, also likely made of bronze or silver. It hangs on the same chain as your tweezers and kohl, a complete set of personal hygiene tools. It speaks to a level of detailed self-maintenance that shatters the dirty barbarian stereotype. Now we move to the chemical agents. You have your soap. You likely have two kinds. The first is a general-purpose Lysol, made from animal fat and wood ash. It's a harsh but effective cleanser for your body, hair, and clothes. It's what makes washing day Saturday possible. But then you have your special soap, the Hyalite bleaching soap. This is the stuff you use to touch up your roots, to keep your hair and beard that perfect, intimidating shade of platinum blonde. It's less a cleanser and more a chemical weapon in your fight against your natural hair color. You keep it wrapped in a piece of cloth or leather, as its caustic nature is not something you want rubbing against your other possessions. Next is your pot of kohl. This might be a small, hollowed-out piece of bone, a carved wooden container, or even a polished seashell. Inside is the fine, dark powder of ground-up lead or glina, possibly mixed with a bit of charcoal and fat. Alongside it, you have your applicator, a thin rod of polished bone, ivory, or bronze, sharpened to a point for precise application. This is your makeup kit. It's your tool for creating the dramatic, intimidating gaze that is central to the warrior aesthetic. It's a luxury item, a sign of your worldliness, and a slow-acting poison. If you have gone the extra mile, you also carry a small container of pigment for your teeth. This would be another small pot, perhaps containing a thick paste of beeswax mixed with reed ochre or black charcoal. You would use a small stick or even your fingernail to reapply this color to the grooves in your teeth before an important event, ensuring your smile remains as menacing as possible. Finally, while not strictly a grooming tool, you would have a small, polished piece of metal that serves as a mirror. It wouldn't give you the crystal-clear reflection of a modern glass mirror. The image would be slightly distorted and dim, but it's enough. It allows you to check your appearance, to ensure your braids are straight, your eyeliner is even, and there's no food stuck in your terrifyingly modified teeth. This entire collection of objects could be carried in a single leather pouch, or the most important items might be displayed on a chain as a kind of functional jewelry. This is your cosmetic case, your dop kit. It's a portable summary of the Viking beauty paradox. It contains tools of cleanliness and order the calm, the tweezers alongside tools of painful transformation, intimidation, the bleaching soap, the kohl, the tooth pigment. The sheer number of these artifacts found by archaeologists speaks volumes. This wasn't the kit of a few vain elites. Elements of this kit were found among a wide cross-section of society. The desire to be clean, well-groomed, and to conform to these specific beauty standards was a deeply ingrained part of the culture. And as you put the pouch on your belt, you feel a sense of completeness. You have everything you need to maintain the face you present to the world. A face that is a complex and painful work of art. The ship cuts through the gray water, and you have a moment of quiet reflection. You think about the journey you've been on, not across the sea, but the one you've undertaken on your own body. You run a hand over your brittle, bleached hair. You feel the faint itch on your scalp. You blink, and you can almost feel the gritty weight of the lead-based kohl on your eyelids. You run your tongue over the rough, grooved landscape of your front teeth. A dull ache in your jaw serves as a constant reminder, and you have to ask yourself the ultimate question. Was it worth it? The answer isn't a simple yes or no. It's a complicated calculus of pain versus reward, a physical cost versus social gain. Let's tally up the cost side of the ledger first. You have subjected your body to a series of brutal, painful procedures. You have willingly endured chemical burns on your scalp and face from a caustic lye soap, a process you must repeat every few weeks. You have permanently damaged the structure of your hair, leaving it dry, brittle, and prone to breaking. You have been slowly and systematically poisoning yourself with a heavy metal, introducing a toxin into your body that could lead to chronic pain, neurological damage, and a host of other long-term health problems you can't even imagine. And then there's the most extreme cost. You have submitted to what can only be described as a form of ritualized torture. You allowed a man to take a metal file and scrape away the living tissue of your teeth. A pain so profound it likely sits in a category all its own. You have permanently mutilated your own skeleton, trading healthy teeth for a higher risk of decay and infection for the rest of your life. The physical price you have paid for your appearance is staggering. Now, let's look at the other side of the ledger. The rewards. In the ruthless, status-conscious world you inhabit, these rewards are very real. Your appearance has granted you access. You are visually identifiable as a member of the warrior class, perhaps even an elite within that class. You command a higher level of respect and a higher level of fear from those around you. This can translate into tangible benefits, better alliances, a larger share of wealth, and a greater degree of influence. Your intimidating appearance is a form of armor, a psychological shield that might make an enemy hesitate or a rival think twice before challenging you. You have also achieved a sense of belonging. You look like the heroes in the sagas. You fit the ideal. This provides a powerful sense of identity and camaraderie with your peers who have undergone the same rituals. You share a bond forged in shared suffering. This is not a small thing in a world where your social connections can be the difference between life and death. So, was it worth it? From a modern perspective, with our understanding of medicine, chemistry, and human rights, the answer is a resounding no. The costs are horrifying. The practice is barbaric. But you are not living in the modern world. You are a Viking. Your understanding of pain, health, and the body is fundamentally different. Pain is not something to be avoided at all costs. It is a test of character, a crucible that forges strength. The long-term health consequences are unknown to you. Abstract concepts in a world full of immediate, tangible dangers like starvation, disease, and violence. You are more likely to die from a sword wound or a shipwreck than from lead poisoning, so the risk seems negligible. The debate over the why of these practices often circles back to this cost-benefit analysis. Historians who focus on the social aspects argue that the rewards of status and belonging in a hierarchical honor culture were so immense that they easily justified the physical costs. They argue that in a society without formal institutions like police or courts, your personal reputation was your primary asset, and it was worth paying a high price to enhance it. Other scholars, with a more medical or anthropological focus, emphasize the immense harm, suggesting that those who undertook these practices may not have fully understood the long-term damage, or that the social pressures were so extreme as to override all rational self-preservation. This is a classic structure versus agency debate. Were you forced into this by the pressures of your society's structure? Or did you freely choose it as a rational actor seeking to better your position agency? As you sit on the deck of your ship, you don't think in these academic terms. You just know that when your chieftain looks at you, he sees a loyal and serious warrior. You know that when your enemies see you, they see a demon. And you know that when you look at your own reflection, you see someone who has endured, someone who has earned his place. In the brutal arithmetic of your own life, the calculation, for now, seems to come out in your favor. The pain was an investment, and the dividends are respect and fear. In the economy of the Viking Age, that's a blue chip stock. As the coastline grows clearer, you begin to see your appearance in a new light. It's not just a collection of fashionable choices or intimidating features. It's a suit of armor. It's not made of iron rings or boiled leather, but it's just as real and, in some ways, even more effective. This is your social armor, a protective layer you've constructed around yourself piece by painful piece. Every element of your look is a plate in this armor. The meticulous grooming, the combing, the washing, the plucking forms the base layer. It's your armor against chaos and disorder. It projects an image of self-control and discipline, a mind that is as sharp and ordered as your hairstyle. It's a declaration that you are not a wild man, but a person of purpose and deliberation. This baseline of cleanliness and order is what separates you, in your own mind, from the uncivilized peoples you encounter. The bleached blonde hair is a gleaming breastplate of this armor. It's the most visible, most dramatic element. It's your banner, a bright, shining signal of your identity. It announces who you are from a distance, marking you as a Northman. It's an armor against anonymity. In a vast and multicultural world of trade and conflict, this distinctive look binds you to your people and distinguishes you from all others. It's a uniform for an army that has no formal uniform. The kohl around your eyes is your helmet's visor. It conceals your true emotions and creates a mask of implacable aggression. It's armor for your soul, allowing you to separate the person you are from the warrior you must become. Behind that dark, smoky facade, you can hide your fear, your doubt, or your exhaustion. It allows you to project an image of pure, untroubled ferocity, even when your heart is pounding. It protects you from the enemy's gaze, preventing them from seeing any weakness they might exploit. And the filed teeth, that is the hidden, serrated edge of your armor. It's the feature that's only revealed at close quarters, in the most intense and intimate moments of conflict. It's a secret weapon. It's the armor's final, shocking surprise. It's a defense mechanism designed not to deflect a blow, but to break the spirit of your attacker. It's a psychological gambit, a plate of armor for your reputation that says you are willing to go to extremes that others would not even contemplate. Building this armor has been a painful and costly process. Each plate has been forged in discomfort. From the chemical burn of lye to the slow ache of lead poisoning to the searing agony of the file. This is what makes the armor so strong. The very fact that it was so difficult to create is what gives it its power. It is a testament to your endurance, a visible record of the pain you can withstand. This concept, that strength is forged through suffering, is central to your worldview. The sagas are filled with heroes who endure terrible hardships and emerge stronger. Your body has become your own personal saga, a story of trials overcome. This idea of social armor is a concept that historians and sociologists use to understand how people in all cultures use appearance to navigate their social worlds. We all wear some form of social armor, whether it's the power suit of a lawyer, the ripped jeans of a punk rocker, or the specific brand of sneakers favored by a particular youth group. We use clothes, hairstyles, and accessories to signal our identity, our allegiance, and our status. The Vikings just took this universal human impulse to a more extreme and visceral level. Their armor was not just worn, it was inscribed onto their very bodies. The debate among academics here might focus on the primary function of this armor. Was it more defensive or offensive? Was it primarily about protecting one's own identity and status within the group? Or was it more about projecting power and intimidation outwards towards other groups? It's impossible to untangle the two completely. The armor serves both functions simultaneously. It solidifies your place within your own society while simultaneously presenting a unified, threatening front to the outside world. It builds community and projects power at the same time. As you prepare to disembark, you feel the weight of this armor around you. It's invisible, but you can feel its presence. It gives you confidence. It defines your role. You are not just you, an individual. You are a Viking warrior, clad in the carefully constructed identity of your people. You are protected by your hair, your makeup, and your scars. You are ready. The raid is over. The ship is heavy with silver, textiles, and captives. You are heading home. The adrenaline has faded, leaving behind a deep, bone-weary exhaustion. Use it on a sea chest, cleaning your axe. The rhythmic scrape of the whetstone is soothing, familiar sound. You catch your reflection in the polished steel of the blade. You see the tired, kohl-smudged eyes, the pale hair matted with sweat and sea salt, the grim set of your jaw. It's the face of a Viking warrior. But as you stare a little longer, you see something else. You see a timeless human face, etched with a familiar, ancient anxiety. This entire, painful journey, the bleaching, the poisoning, the filing was driven by a single, powerful force, the desire to conform to a specific standard of beauty. It was about fitting in, about achieving an ideal look that your society deemed valuable undetracted. And in this, you are not some exotic, barbaric other. You are startlingly, uncomfortably modern. Strip away the long ships and the horned helmets which, again, they didn't wear. What are you left with? You are left with a culture that is deeply preoccupied with appearance. You are left with people who are willing to spend significant time, money, and effort to change their bodies to match a fleeting cultural ideal. You are left with people who will endure pain from the sting of a chemical to the agony of a file to feel beautiful, to feel accepted, to feel powerful. Does any of that sound familiar? The powerful lye soap that burned your scalp is not so different from the harsh chemical bleaches and dyes people use today, which can still cause scalp irritation and damage hair. The pursuit of a hair color you weren't born with is a multi-billion-dollar industry in the 21st century. The tyranny of blonde hair did not end with the Vikings. The toxic, lead-based kohl you used to create a smoky eye is a direct ancestor of a modern cosmetics industry that has, at times, used its own share of questionable, undangerous ingredients. The desire to have dramatic, alluring eyes is as powerful today as it was 1,000 years ago. The pressure to conform to a certain makeup trend, to contour your face just so, to achieve the perfect eyebrow arch, this is your legacy. And the most extreme practice, the dental modification, while filing teeth, is not a mainstream practice today. Think of the lengths people will go to for the perfect smile. They will endure the pain of braces, the expense of veneers, the discomfort of whitening treatments that can leave teeth painfully sensitive. The goal is different: a bright, white, perfectly aligned smile instead of a terrifyingly grooved one, but the underlying impulse is the same: to alter our teeth to fit a specific, culturally defined aesthetic standard. The central debate that runs through the study of all historical beauty standards is this: are they a form of oppressive control, forcing individuals into a painful and often unhealthy mold? Or are they a form of personal expression and empowerment, a way for people to take control of their own bodies and construct their own identities? Looking at your own experience, you know the answer is both. You felt the immense social pressure to conform, the fear of being an outcast. That felt like oppression, but you also felt a surge of pride and power after you achieved the look. That felt like empowerment. The two feelings are tangled together, impossible to separate. Your story is a mirror. It reflects our own anxieties about appearance, our own willingness to suffer for beauty, and our own complex relationship with social norms. The technology has changed. The specific ideals have shifted. But the fundamental human drama is the same. The quest for beauty is a thread that runs through all of human history. A story of creativity, community, pain, and poison. As your ship finally slides into the familiar waters of your home fjord, you feel a sense of relief. You have survived the raid. You have survived the sea. And you have, so far, survived the brutal and impossible beauty standards of your time. You are home. The armor can be, for a little while at least, set aside. You can just be yourself, a tired person, glad to see the cooking smoke rising from the longhouse. The gentle rocking of the long ship has followed you onto the shore, a phantom sway that now lulls you toward the edge of sleep. The sounds of the village, the crackle of the fire in the longhouse, the low murmur of voices telling tales of the journey begin to soften and blur at the edges. Your own story, the one etched onto your hair and your skin and your teeth, feels less like a sharp reality and more like a distant echo, a dream you once had. The aches and pains of your brutal beauty have faded, replaced by a heavy, comfortable weariness. You are sinking now, down through layers of soft wool and warm furs, into the deep, quiet darkness of the night. The harsh light of the Viking sun gives way to the gentle glow of a dream. Where the sea is calm and the winds are always at your back, you are drifting on a silent current, away from the world of iron and bone, into a place of pure rest. Your breathing deepens. Each exhale a small goodbye to the day. The story is over. Your journey is done. Now, there is only the peaceful, weightless quiet of sleep.